Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time, and I'm here for another herb drying video for spring of 2020, and the date that I'm shooting this is actually May 1st. So I want to show you what I have going on. This is going to be an ongoing series. Going to try to get one of these up maybe every other week just so you can see what I'm doing. And for those of you who are new, we are in the Pacific Northwest. We're actually in the peninsula of Washington State. So some of you watching this, if you're in a northeastern state, your herbs may not be here by now. And if you're in the south, or especially southeast, you're probably long past this stage. So this is just where we are right now and what I've been gathering and drying. So let's talk about these herbs. So I'm still getting dandelion flowers, and I've started harvesting the lemon balm. The plants are still kind of small yet, but I'm getting enough that I can start cutting on it and getting some herbs drying up. Now we're getting the big dandelion leaves. So for us, if you live in an area like ours, now's the time to start collecting those dandelion leaves. So I've been actually using them fresh and also drying them up. And then same thing with the peppermint. I've been drying up lots of peppermint, and I have some mojito mint in here as well. And so peppermint is our favorite for herbal tea and even making other various herbal tea blends. And so we go through a lot. So I've been doing the peppermint for several days now. And then as far as the using the dandelions fresh, I actually, even though they're kind of bitter, after eating feverfew and using it for pain and actually eating it fresh and getting kind of used to that flavor, it's nothing near as bitter as that, and I've got to where I actually like the flavor of a fresh dandelion leaf. Now, you can easily mix those into a fresh salad. So last night I made up some carne asada for Patrick, and I made him a side of taco salad, and I also made some tortillas. And he ended up basically just making a taco out of the salad and the meat and the tortilla, but you know, it was for however he wanted to eat it anyway. But since our lettuces, I finally got enough lettuces to make a salad, what I did was, and this is what I always do, is I always make sure I get some fresh dandelion leaves to put in there because there's so many great benefits in that. And then the rest I dehydrate up and put in my mixed greens blend, which includes a whole bunch of other greens from strawberry leaves to stinging nettle and much more. And yes, I'm still dehydrating up stinging nettle. In fact, here's a couple of pictures that I took today of my nettle. I keep cutting it down and dehydrating it or freezing it or using it right away in meals, and I still get a lot. One more herb I forgot. This is going to be a new one for me to try dehydrating this year, and this is garlic greens. Now, I've talked about these in some other videos. These are from the elephant garlic, which I actually prefer the flavor of these better than the smaller ones, but they're all good. And if you've got garlic greens out there, go ahead and start cutting them and using them. It's not going to hurt your garlic. It's actually going to make your garlic more healthy, as more nutrients can go into making bigger cloves of garlic. Anyway, both are good. I cut them up and use them fresh in salads, or, which is what I did with the taco salad, I actually used the smaller garlic, the regular garlic greens, and threw that in there. But this is still my favorite for flavor. And when I made the carne asada, I actually cut some of this up fresh and put it into the marinade. Here's a picture right here you can see, along with some onions. And then just kind of let them, when I grilled the meat, I let some of that just sit on there on the meat. I haven't decided exactly what I'm going to do with this, if I want to powder it or just flake it up and add it to my mixed greens blend. That will add more flavor to that, more of that garlic flavor, or if I just want to keep it separate. I haven't quite decided yet. For now, I'll keep it separate though. Now, before I get on to dealing with that, I wanted to talk about another thing that I dehydrated recently, and that is some ground beef right here. So here's a couple more pictures of it. I got this idea, I think it was from Ellen Fisher, one of our followers anyway, had talked about how they like to dehydrate up ground beef, and I'd never tried it. I've canned it, but I'm thinking, wow, what a great idea. Why didn't I think of that? So I just browned up some ground beef. Since we still had a fire going the day I did this, because we've been kind of, usually at nights, we still have cool nights this time of year, so we'll build the fire, and I let it dry on top of the wood stove. And I have a video just dedicated to how I dry things through the winter time that I will go ahead and link to in the description box down below. Again, don't forget to click on show more or that little gray arrow. But anyway, I browned it, I drained the fat off of it, and then put it on a stoneware cookie sheet and let it dry most of the way there. And then the next day we let the fire go out because it was warm enough, so I let it finish drying in my dehydrator rack on one of these trays with the cloth, you know, the little fabric circles that I made. So I'm really liking these. These have been the best thing ever. So I'm getting rid of all the clean screens. I'm going to see if I can even sell them because I'm liking the fabric better. It allows more airflow. You're not getting all that plastic contact with your food. So that at least lowers, that's a little less plastic you're having to deal with there. Now, I do recommend, and I didn't even think about this, I did forget one step when I did this, and that is what you should do after you drain the meat. You should rinse it out really well with some really hot water to get as much of that fat out of there as possible. And I totally spaced that one. So that is recommended to do after you brown the meat, but before you dehydrate it. However, I'm not actually worried about this spoiling, even though it still is going to have some fat in there. And I can't tell you for certain what the shelf life is on it and what it will be because I've never tried it. Right here I have some beef jerky that I made in 2016. So this is 4 years old. It's not moldy. It looks really good as long as your jars, and there's fat in here, as long as your jars keep their seal, it shouldn't mold on you. I have pulled some out before that ended up getting moldy, but the seal had come undone somewhere along the way. Here's one that's 3 years old. This is elk jerky, and as you can see, it looks really good. There's no mold. In fact, one of the beef ones is a smaller jar. I think it was even older than this. I think it was a 2014. I'll put a picture here, and it'll say in the picture, it should show a picture of the lid. And I opened it up and I munched on that, and it was really good. And once I opened it though, I kept it in the refrigerator just to make sure. So once you open your jar, if you're not going to reseal it because you're going to be working out of it, I recommend keeping it in the refrigerator. And that's what I probably will do with this. However, you can always, once you start using it, if you don't think you're going to use it up right away, I just say re-vacuum seal it again and then put it back on your shelf. So anyway, this is mostly, I'm going to see how well this works. I think this will be much better for using in my spaghetti sauce and other Italian sauces than the canned ground beef. I think I'm going to probably like it better. It is kind of good to snack on right out of the jar. So anyway, let's move on to the herbs. When I go to do my herbs like lemon balm, I just toss them on there like that. I don't do anything else. If I've got big clusters of stem, I might break those off, but lemon balm isn't so bad. It has thinner stems, and so it's not such a big deal. Now, when it comes to any of your herbs, your more delicate type herbs, you're gonna wanna dehydrate them if you're using an electric dehydrator at a setting of 95 to 110 tops. And then other things you might dehydrate at a higher rate. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. For the garlic greens, I'm just going to chop them up. I'm not going to try to get them any specific size. I just want to get them to where it's easy enough for me to just lay them on the dehydrator rack. I'm either going to powder these or I'm just going to flake them up like this once they're fully dry. All right. Oh my gosh, they smell good. Oh. They smell so wonderful. I almost think I like the garlic greens on the elephant garlic better than the garlic itself. It almost seems they have a little more flavor because anyone who grows the bigger English garlic or elephant garlic, the garlic cloves aren't quite as strong and pungent as the smaller garlic. But the greens, man, they are so good. But I still love it. I love both. In fact, I prefer growing the elephant garlic over the smaller garlic, even though the flavor isn't as strong. I just use more of it. Okay, and then this tray here is actually nut pulp that I dehydrated up, and I'm going to turn this into flour today. So I just wanted to show that to you. This is another thing. Normally I do this during the winter. I do this next to my wood stove or on top of the wood stove. But since we've got lots of solar power, I've been running the electric dehydrator. And even on the cloth, even though I put it on there, it's very damp. It actually has been working out really well. I might have to rub it a little bit to get it to come off the cloth, but it still works great. But I'll get to that later. If you're interested in my video on making your own nut flours, I'll go ahead and link to that video down below as well. The dandelion leaves, I just toss them on there like that. That's all I do. The whole plant is edible, the whole plant is usable, and I have a video on that as well that I will link to down below. So I'll just put it on like that. You can see how high I pile it. I don't worry too much. It's going to dry. Okay, so now peppermint, it really just depends. It depends on how much space I have in my dehydrator. A lot of times I'll start to just toss it on there like so. If it looks like I just have, you know, I don't have as much space. I have several dehydrators, but I don't usually run 2 or 3 until later in the year where we're getting even more solar power, because I still try to conserve it as much as possible. So right now I'm only running 1 dehydrator at a time because we've been having a lot of cloudy days. So, and the reason I have so many is I picked them up from garage sales for $3 to $5 a piece, and I grab them when I see them, and they're hardly used at all. And so that way I always have backups. So if one of my motors ever breaks down, I have a backup one. I have more trays that way, and I can also run several things at a time if I need to. So anyway, this is quite a bit for this tray. But if I take off a lot of these stems, and here's what you can do with these stems, you use these to make a fresh pot of tea because there's a lot of flavor in these stems. They just do not dehydrate up very well. It can take a very long time, especially when they're thick like that. So sometimes I'll just go ahead and strip a lot of the leaves off just to make more room on the dehydrator. It will also speed up the whole dehydrating process if you get a lot of these thicker stems out of there. And then in my last video, I talked about how I deal with the dandelions. You can go ahead and check that out, which I will also link down below. And I show some of the other things I was dehydrating that week. Now, one question I get a lot is, how long do you dehydrate them? Well, a lot of it's going to depend on the actual setting you use, whether you go 95, 100, 105. It's going to vary. If you're using the kind of dehydrator we have, the Nesco, where you got the heating element on the top, so it's blowing the air downwards, you're going to find that the trays on the bottom are going to take the longest to dry. And Excalibur works differently. So you could probably put a lot of stuff in there and have it all dry equally at the same time. I don't know. I'm not experienced at working with those. But the thing I like about the Nesco and the way that it's put together is it makes it so that I can actually dry several different types of things at one time. So what I did the other day, in fact, is I had on the very top, I had the ground beef. Then on the next tray down, I had the nut pulp. And then on the following trays down, I had herbs put in order from the least delicate to the most delicate at the very bottom, because the ones on the bottom are going to get the least amount of the direct heat, and so they're not going to get too hot, and that actually works really good. So if you learn how to use your Nesco in that way, put your least delicate things at the top, your more delicate things at the bottom are going to dry fairly evenly that way, without destroying the benefits of your good herbs, but without also taking too long for your, drying your ground beef and your pulp or vegetables. Say you're doing zucchini, you can do zucchini, tomatoes, or whatever on the top and put your herbs on the bottom. So that's one of the pluses I find with the Nesco, is I can put several different types of things in a dehydrator at a time. Now later in the year, I can run 2 or 3 dehydrators, have herbs in one and have that set at a low temp, have vegetables in another and have that set at a bit higher temp, and maybe even some meat in another one and have that set even higher. So it really just kind of depends on what you got going on. But if you only have one dehydrator, the stacking in the way I described is a really good way to make that work best for you and get the most out of your dehydrator and get a lot dehydrating at a time. So anyway, the length of time is going to be variable. A lot of times my stuff will dry within a day. So if I can start it early in the morning and then shut it off at night, it's usually done. A lot of times though, I don't get my stuff on the dehydrator until around noon. And so because it's running off solar power, I usually unplug it in the evening before the sun sets and then plug it back in again in the morning once the sun rises. But if you're running off just regular electricity, then you can just run it through the night. It should be safe. But the problem with that is if you're talking delicate herbs, you're not going to think to get up and check it in the middle of the night. And some things do need to be checked every couple hours. So I do still recommend with that kind of stuff that you only do it during the daytime so that you can check them. Some can take 8 hours, some can take 4. It's very variable, and the only way you're going to find out is to just turn it on, following the heat settings that I talked about, and then check it every hour or two to see how they're coming along. Okay, well that's it for my dehydrating video for this week. There'll be more to come as more herbs and various things come in for me to dry, and so I'll be talking about those in later videos. And go ahead and share down below what you're dehydrating this week. Wherever you are in the US or around the world, you're going to be getting all different kinds of things. You're probably far ahead of us on some things or way behind us on others, and that's just what kind of makes us all unique, is the areas we live in are all going to be unique in what they have coming in. So go ahead and share with us in the comments down below what you're drying out of your garden this week. All right, thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.